Welcome back. We've had a conversation before.
Thank you.
Um, what is top of mind, one, two, or three things that for sure, you want everyone to know?
Well, lately I've been working on this coaching app. It's called Breakthrough AI, and it's really designed to help people break through, and that could be anything really. If you want to break through a financial goal, a relationship goal, a fitness goal, whatever it is. And one of the things that's very unique, there's lots of goal planners, there's lots of goal apps out there. This is very different. Um, what I've done is created what gets in the way of goals is the biggest problem because you can set all the goals you want, but if you don't get the stuff that's in the way out of the way, it's going to be very difficult. So the biggest thing in the way is fear. So what I've created is called the fear tolerance threshold. Everybody has this threshold level of fear in their life at this moment. And so the first thing is to actually understand what is your fear tolerance threshold right now? Like, what is your level of fear right now, which is holding you back from getting the life you want, feeling the way you want, having the things in your life that you want. So they go through a bunch of questions that put them in scenarios, that are related to everyday situations. You get into a car accident. What do? You have a screaming match with a family member. What do you do? You have all these different instances in your life that are creating fear. Your response to
Do
that
you ever
fear.
find it helpful to measure stress hormones in saliva or plasma, but to measure stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline and dopamine and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can do that, because
Well,
obviously most people, you have access to the tools. The challenge for most people is you don't have access to those tools right off the bat. That would be very interesting though, to be able to measure that right away. You
yes.
know,
Because forgive me, sometimes I think people are unaware of how fear kills the mind, to keep it very succinct.
sure.
And for some people, now there are people who say, I don't care what my stress hormones are. But a lot of people would really like to know, what does the test say and what does the test mean in terms of what you're really talking about, which is changing habits of daily living to promote well-being.
Yeah. Yeah, there's obviously lots of ways to measure fear. Um, the goal that I'm trying to achieve is to help people just first become aware of how high their fear tolerance threshold is. And then once they get so basically this app scores them. It gives them a score. You're at 40%, you're at 50%. You're trying to get your fear tolerance threshold up higher. You can handle more fear. And so then based on their score, they then are recommended challenges to raise their fear tolerance threshold. And so, and you don't have to have the app to do this, obviously, but this is a good point is that we have to have these certain challenges in our life to raise our fear tolerance threshold and be able to handle more in life and reduce the stress hormones. And
Yes,
so,
Hans Selye, the father of stress medicine, talked about the bifurcation of stress. There's a positive side to a little bit of stress that's called eustress. I find just breathing deeply and slowly, abdominal breathing for about 5 minutes twice a day, 15 minutes of relaxation response, or mindfulness or meditation or whatever you want to do, including listening to great classical music if that's what you prefer. Because what you enjoy doing will be much more beneficial to you than what you're obliged to do.
sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Um, the actual results of the out of balance state of your nervous system from fear is such that you will be extremely limited in what you can do and your ability to process information. All your body really wants to do is run, fight, or just freeze and do nothing, right? We're turning on the amygdala. And so I think the more people understand how fear plays such a huge role in your life, and if you can gain control of your nervous system through tools like breath work, then breath work, meditation, nature, soothing music, all of which I practice and teach, and I know you're big on those as well. Then and you have these tools, and there's two instances I find that people need to incorporate into their life. They need to have tools for when they're in the fire. Like you don't have time to sit down and meditate. Like you're in the fire. You just got in a car accident. What are you going to do? You're in the fire. You need in the fire tools, and then you need deliberate practice tools. And those are like, hey, you get up in the morning, one of the first things you're going to do is some kind of nervous system realignment, where it could be breath work, it could be meditation. You take a nature walk, whatever it is that you do to calm your nervous system. And here's the interesting thing, which you know about, is that consistency compounds. And so if you can have a consistent practice of having meditation, breath work, those type of things on a daily basis, that adds up over time. So when you do get in that accident, you don't react. You don't overreact as much as you would because you've raised your fear tolerance threshold through deliberate practice.
I
So,
think the word fortitude is the antidote in part to fear, and it says you have another choice. The choice to stay calm and keep breathing, the choice to whatever stress is circling around you, to not have that impact you in a negative way. But as I think you're implying, you have to practice before you can use the tool well and wisely and consistently.
yeah, absolutely. And it takes time to master that. There was something really interesting I was noticing. I mean, I'm a yoga and breathwork clinician. Like I've been teaching people how to breathe for over 20 years. But I noticed something, in when you go into your inner circle, like your family and stuff like that, and you watch people, and I noticed all of my family members, they have a tendency to breathe through their mouth, open their mouth, and have their mouth is open all the time. And they're not aware of it. It's totally unconscious. But what's happening, and this has been proven scientifically, is when you breathe through your mouth a lot, you stimulate your sympathetic nervous system. Again, you're stimulating more fear just by having your mouth open. So the deliberate practice of over and over doing breath work every day, that creates the habit that then makes you aware when you're opening your mouth and you start shutting your mouth, you start breathing through your nose more. And I don't know if you've read the book Breath by James Nestor.
That's quite a good book. That's quite a good book.
Yeah.
I learned from Ramamurti Mishra. I don't know if you remember Dr. Mishra. He had a Nanda ashram and ashrams a number of places. He wrote Yoga Sutras, textbook of yoga psychology, a commentary on Patanjali Sutras. And he actually locked me in his library with the Charaka Samhita. And he said, when you're done, because it's, like 3 volumes, when you're done, I'll feed you.
How long did that take?
Oh, it took a couple of days, but it was in a good cause. He was not being harsh. He was being appropriate.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, you know, one of the really easy things I think people can do is go for a walk Everybody can do this, and you're a lot of people, they are challenged with meditation is that they have the monkey mind going over and over. And if you can engage your brain and your body in more activity, then the monkey mind seems to kind of lower down. So if you take a walk and you're actually being physical, and when you're walking, you actually count how many steps you take per inhale and how many steps you take per exhale. And you're conscious of that. And that's all you do when you walk. And your goal is just to lift those numbers up by one or two. So let's say you start walking and you got 4 steps on your inhale. And then you got maybe 6 on your exhale, because you'll always be able to exhale longer than you inhale. And then let's say you got 4 and 6. And so that's your average. That's a good average. Some people will be a lot lower than that. But if you can count that out and be conscious of it, and then start trying to push that by one count, right? So it's then 5 steps per inhale and 7 steps per exhale. And you're just breathing through your nose only. And you do that 5 days a week or 7 days a week, or maybe even twice a day, you are going to build some neurocircuitry that's going to rewire your brain on how to breathe and manage your stress levels, and then be able to do more in life, achieve more, handle more stress, handle more challenges. And it's the ripple effect of so many different things in your life.
Actually, that's a very good point. If you choose to be healthier, the people around you get healthier. This is called a
Right.
spreading phenomenon. But if you practice the opposite, they get sicker. So not only for yourself, for those around you, choose habits of daily living, choose epigenetic lifestyle, because that's 92% of your health anyway. And the remaining 8% is transgenerational and genomic. But if you want to influence that favorably, your DNA and your RNA, have enough antioxidants, enough bioavailable minerals, cofactors, essential building block nutrients. And I think what you're saying is so valuable because it's about what you eat and drink, think and do every day.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. This is I think I was talking to Sam about the topic for this, which was the oneness of life and its environment. And you just talked about, which is like the mirror effect. Your life is a mirror of what's going on inside yourself, and vice versa. So I like this quote from Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha who lived roughly 2,500 to 3,000 years ago. He said, "All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts and made up of our thoughts." And so if we can change our thoughts by dialing down our nervous system and breathing, then we can change everything, because again, everything comes from those thoughts. And when you're calm, when you're relaxed, when you're seeing from a higher perspective, your thoughts are so much different. You're non-reactive, you make better decisions, and the ripple effect occurs and things change in your life. And then you see, and for instance, let's say if you are able to dial down your nervous system and keep a consistent practice of, say, meditation or breath work, then you'll start to see things in your environment, like different people will show up in your life. You will handle the current people in your life differently and get a different response from them. So like, let's say people in the past, maybe you butted heads with them and they didn't listen to anything you had to say. But if you were able to dial down your nervous system, become a calm, confident person, this would then mirror what the person in your environment would be doing. So maybe now that person, instead of disrespecting you or never listening to you, they start listening to you for the first time ever. And this can happen in intimate relationships, family relationships. I've seen this in family relationships where people are just conflict after conflict after conflict. And then one person changes. One person changes. They 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 change their thoughts, they change their nervous system, and then the result is the relationship improves just because that one person changes. And this happens in relationships. This is a reflection of your your finances. This is a reflection of your health, your actual physical health, and everything else in your life.
The fellow who introduced me to this was Bhante Dharmawara, a socially engaged Buddhist. Some people considered him the living Buddha of our times. And I had 30 years with him. And he taught by example. He showed me a better way to be a better me and a better citizen. I now live in a personal blue zone. I bought 40 years ago a small property in Vienna, Virginia, and we've been improving the gardens, the mushroom guilds, the guest cottages, so that for those who are interested, they can come and experience for a day or a few days what living in a personal blue zone is really all about. There's nothing like experience to be a wise teacher, and nature contains essentially all the answers if we're willing to pay attention to what she's teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that blue zone concept of, because there's a book, there's a show, you can go travel, miles and miles and miles to get to these blue zones, but what about blue zones in our own backyards?
Right. A personal blue zone. It is possible. I
Yeah,
forgive me for saying this, but I think I live near paradise. I could not imagine that paradise would be nicer than where I live.
yeah. I'll have to check it out sometime.
Yes.
Maybe,
No, when you're in the DC area, come visit.
yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So we have only a few more minutes. I greatly appreciate the wisdom, the scientific intelligence, the emotional maturity that you bring to this discussion, because the right behavior, the right suggestion, the right motivation and inspiration can literally change a life.
Yeah.
I used to weigh 65 pounds more than I do now. It's been many years since I've lost the weight, and I don't intend to find it again. But like a lot of people, I gained a few pounds a year for 25 years. And then, well, actually, I had a near-death experience, which got my attention. And coming out of that was a renewal and a restoration of my confidence and faith in nature, nurture, and wholeness. So I thank you so much for breakthrough coaching. I thank you so much for what you do personally and professionally. And I'm so glad that we got to share this with our audience.
My pleasure. It's good to be here with you, Russell.
Mhm.
Take care.